Good morning and welcome to our 10th annual Financial Executive Forum. This is the sixth and final event in our 2024 webinar series. It's been a great 6 weeks of learning for all of us, and the time has really flown by. We really appreciate everyone joining us this morning. I'm Grant Palmer, and I'm a partner with Cordia Resources by Cherry Beckert, one of the sponsors for this series. As you will see, we also have 4 other great local sponsors who I will introduce shortly. I also want to thank and acknowledge the Wells Fargo banking team for their economic outlook and capital markets update, plus the 2024 election outlook as presented last week by Ben Kane, Tim Quinlan, Chris O'Gene, Nida Zaman, and John Han. Our sponsors have been excited to see such a great response throughout these past 6 weeks. Nearly 650 people are registered for this series. We know and understand how valuable these high quality and relevant training events are to financial professionals managing corporate accounting and financial functions. Today, we're excited to be joined by Aaron Harris, the Chief Technology Officer at Sage, who will be presenting how AI and digital networks will shape the future of accounting. You should also know that we have a great team from Cherry Beckert running our virtual program today, but please bear with us should there be any technical difficulties. As you can see, we have 6 great programs for you in this series, this year's series. If you fully attended all 6 events and you're a CPA, you can earn up to 12 full CPE hours. Last week, as mentioned, the Wells Fargo banking team presented their economic outlook and capital markets update, plus a special 2024 election outlook. And today, the final day in our this year's 2024 series, Sage, a new sponsor with the FEF, will present how AI and digital networks will shape the future of accounting. Before we move forward, I'd like to cover our basic CPE webinar rules. In terms of NASBA compliance, our polling questions will appear throughout the webinar. You will need to answer 75% of the 8 polling questions to receive full CPE credit for each session. Any answer to a polling question, correct or incorrect, counts towards the 75%. Since you'll be muted during the entire session, please use the Q&A feature to submit your questions to the panelists, and please use the chat feature to communicate any technical issues that you may have. After the program, please complete the session survey using the link that we will send to you in the post-event email. Your CPE certificates should be issued within 10 days of this course, if not sooner. If you have any questions, please reach out to Cherry Beckert Learning at cbhlearning@cbh.com. Now, I'd like to acknowledge our great team of sponsors for this entire 2024 Financial Executive Forum series. Our first sponsor is Wells Fargo Bank. Wells Fargo, a well-known national bank, is represented by Ben Kane, their Senior Market Director. Wells Fargo Commercial Banking is a returning and longtime sponsor of the Financial Executive Forum. Our second sponsor is Marsh McLennan Agency, a leading provider of business insurance, employee health and benefits, retirement, and private client insurance to organizations and individuals. Marsh is a new sponsor this year and is represented by Allie Gregory, an employee health and benefit consultant. Our third sponsor is Cherry Beckert, a top 25 nationally ranked accounting firm specializing in tax, audit, outsourced accounting, advisory, and system services, who is represented by Tracy Sheps, a CPA and a partner at Cherry Beckert. Our fourth sponsor is Cordia Resources by Cherry Beckert, a leader in recruiting and staffing services in accounting and finance, technology, HR, contracts, and administrative support services, and is represented locally by Doug Smith, one of our key managing directors who leads our sales and staffing services team at Cordia Resources. Finally is Sage, a new sponsor this year, and I will hand it over to Gary Marr, Senior Channel Executive at Sage. Gary?
Yeah, hi, thanks, Grant. Great to be here. I'm pretty excited about today. I think we've got a great presentation in store for you. For those that are not familiar with Sage, we are the market leader in integrated accounting, payroll, payment systems, supporting the ambitions of world entrepreneurs and accountants. We are accounting focused. We are one of the only large accounting products that is just singularly focused on accounting needs. We don't have other products doing other things such as operating systems, things like that. We focus on the needs of accountants. With millions of customers worldwide, we are the only preferred provider of the AI CPA, and we are ranked #1 in customer satisfaction by G2. That's a badge of honor that we wear. In fact, we've gotten some 100 scores on there recently, which is pretty hard to do. So we take customer satisfaction very, very seriously. We've also received the highest product score in core financials for lower midsize enterprise use cases from Gartner. So you can be assured that whatever your accounting needs, software needs are, that we've got a solution for you. And most of that applies to, almost all of that applies specifically to our core product, Sage Intacct. We've got a good full agenda for you today, as you'll see up here. Our presentation today is how AI and digital networks will shape the future of accounting. So we've got our kickoff here that we're doing right now. Then our presentation from till approximately 9:45. We will have time at the end for questions. We do take questions throughout as well. If you put them, I believe, in the question part of the screen, that would be helpful if you have them as we go along. And then we'll have a close at the end. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and throw this over. You guys are in for a real treat. I've had the pleasure of hearing Aaron speak multiple times throughout my long career here at Sage. I've been with Sage 19 years, working most specifically recently with our Sage Intacct product. And Aaron Harris is our Chief Technology Officer. And I'm going to go ahead and say, take it away, Aaron.
Thank you, Gary, and great to be here. Thanks for inviting me to join you today. Let me get my slides going here. Okay, so I'll take just a minute to introduce myself. As Gary mentioned, I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Sage. I actually have a pretty short resume, despite the color of my hair. I worked for Arthur Andersen in the late 90s. Some of you will recall that Arthur Andersen was one of the big six. At the time, I realized pretty quickly that I wasn't a fit for Arthur Andersen. And I moved my family to Silicon Valley in early 2000 to join the founding team for Intacct, which is at the time, a tiny little startup in San Jose, California, actually Los Gatos. And I had the pleasure and the honor of leading product development and technology strategy for Intacct for 17 years until we sold the company to Sage in 2017. And I've been the global chief technology officer for Sage for the last five and a half years. Sage has got a couple of hundred products that we sell globally around the world. Our largest markets are the US, Canada, the UK, Spain, Germany, France. South Africa is a big market for it as well. So I've got, I think, the world's greatest job because I get to lead the technology direction for a really exciting company that's primarily focused on the needs of accountants in the accounting industry. And this is what I've been doing for 25 years now. One of the things that I've been talking about for quite a while is my desire to get rid of the monthly close. If you've ever heard me speak, you've probably heard me talk about how this is a relic of the past. It's something that needs to go away. And my ultimate objective with developing technology is to make that happen. So in preparing for a presentation similar to this, I asked who works on my team to help me out to come up with some good stories to get people excited about or energized and have a little fun with a monthly close. And I need to describe this person. Her name's Sophia. She's very British. She lives in London. She's a graduate of Cambridge. She doesn't have any accounting experience, though. Her experience is in cybersecurity within the government of the UK. So I just wanted to paint that picture of who Sophia is, because I gave her this assignment: go find me something fun that I can start my presentation about AI in the future of the accounting, something fun about the monthly close. And she goes away for a couple of days. She comes back. This is a very good student, but she's very glum. She's kind of downtrodden. She looks me straight in the eye and she says, "I'm sorry, Aaron. I couldn't find anything fun about the close," which, unbeknownst to her, she just gave me my perfect opening for talking about the monthly close. So I got to wondering, for how long have we not been having fun with the close? Well, actually, if you go into the Internet Archives and you do a little research, you can find textbooks going back to 1900. Here's a textbook from 1900 that actually, if you go in there, I love that it's got the T accounts there for the trial balance. It talks about how actually the trial balance, we call it a trial balance because it is in fact a trial. It may not actually balance. So we've got to record the balances and maybe the differences between the balances. I went back a little further. You can go back to 1858. I love this particular textbook. It's talking about both single and double entry accounting. And I love the fact that it feels it's equally important and valuable to talk about accounting for steamboats, right? So we're going back now 180, 170-ish years, right, from where we are today. And we're talking about steamboat accounting, but we're showing our T accounts and the trial balance. And I love the strict instructions in this case to sign the trial balance in red ink for some reason. I didn't realize red ink had gone back that far as something important in the way we do accounting. So the reality is, to get to the heart of the monthly close, you've actually got to go back to 1494 and a gentleman named Luca Pacioli. So Luca Pacioli was a Franciscan monk. He was a contemporary to Leonardo da Vinci. And so unfortunately for him, he was kind of overshadowed by his peer who was designing flying machines and painting pictures of Mona Lisa. But I believe Luca Pacioli had a far more profound impact on the world because he invented and wrote the first textbook about double entry accounting. Now, I know this is in Latin, but you're going to have to just kind of trust me here that this Latin that I pulled from the old textbook is talking about the monthly close, right? So the point is, we've had this way of doing accounting for centuries, for more than 500 years now. Now at Sage, we go out and we talk to finance leaders all the time. We talk to CPAs all the time. And one of the things that we do every year is something we call the annual Close the Books survey. And we want to understand just how much pain small and medium-sized businesses and their finance leaders are going through at the monthly close. And what we found, and this really hasn't moved a lot, unfortunately, over the years, is that finance teams are spending about 25% of their time getting the books closed. And we know that there's the obvious problem there that this is time and resources that would be better spent on more strategic activities. But it's really more than that. That 25% translates into a delay of weeks, leading to indecisive decision-making and anxiety. That time lag can often mean that businesses miss opportunities and risks that with more timely information, more timely reliable information, they might have been able to act on. And we all know why it takes 25% of our resources and it takes weeks to get the month closed. There's still way too much manual data entry. Systems aren't integrated. We're constantly having to chase employees to approve things, to submit things, to answer questions like how much to accrue on a purchase order. And even while we're going through this drudgery every single month, the standards are evolving, and the implications, the impact if we make mistakes is getting more and more personally challenging. I love this quote from one of our customers. I wanted to get a sense from her on how painful the close was, so I could get some stories to tell. And the quote that I love that she gave me was that the end-to-end becomes something to do and not review, which really, I think, paints a picture of how she wants to work, right? She doesn't want to be and she doesn't want her staff to be the ones that are doing the close, that doing all this repetitive work, right? She wants her team to be doing the reviewing, and she wants technology to be doing all the work. So I want to paint a couple of pictures here for what it can actually mean if you can get that close eliminated. Now, that's a North Star. That's a direction. That's where we want to take the accounting industry with technology, but it's a continuous journey towards that. There's a company that I it's a customer of ours called CB Insights. CB Insights for chief technology officers is a great resource for doing market analysis, for understanding where technology investments are going. And so I'm always really, really excited when a vendor that I rely on chooses to become a customer of mine. So I called the controller there, Jonathan Burke, wanted to get their story. And what he told me was their close before implementing Sage Intacct was 60 days. And actually, it was a soft close. They were only able to close expenses. They were never able to actually close revenue. And after the implementation, they got that down to a 3-day close. And the impacts of that was they took all of the time and those resources and totally focused on cash flow. So with that focus on cash flow, they got their days sales outstanding down by 10 days. They were able to create a reliable, confident 13-week cash flow forecast. And the result of that, and this is really, this is what makes my heart warm. This is what I want to deliver to our customers. Right? It gave them confidence that they could make decisions with clarity, right? And they could do the right things. And fundamentally, with CB Insights, it enabled them to launch a new product. So they launched a new product because they had the confidence that they had the cash flow, right? They had the room to do this. They had the resources that they could apply to it. And if they hadn't had that confidence and clarity in the decision-making, this product wouldn't have been launched. That's actually what we're hoping to achieve with our ambitions around technology and someday eliminating the monthly close. So I decided to go into our sales resources and see if I could find more stories about customers who had reduced their monthly close and what it meant to them. And actually, what I found was every single customer story that I pulled up in some way talked about getting the books closed, right? This is one of their chief objectives of implementing a new accounting system. And in a lot of cases, the stories were really, really personal, right? It's not just about the confidence, but it's more time to spend with their family. And actually, it was every single case study that I went through. There was some story about how they were able to get the close down and what that resulted to in terms of a mission accomplished for the business. I love our marketing team here is they like their puns. For this chiropractor, the Sage Intacct is the backbone of the back office. Nice one for a chiropractor. We like to have a little fun. So this is what customers are expecting, right? This is what finance leaders are expecting when they implement a new technology system. But we wanted to look towards the future. And again, that's a key part of my job. And so what we did was we went out and we partnered with Forrester Research, and we sponsored Forrester Research to go interview literally thousands of finance leaders to understand how they're using AI in practice today, how they expect to be using AI in the future, and where they see AI driving the future of the industry. So we spoke to 2,300 finance and accounting leaders from within practice, but also within small and medium-sized businesses. And this was global. It was US, Canada, continental Europe, UK, South Africa, Australia. So this was really a global study, but the results were pretty consistent across the globe. And as a result of all these survey findings, Forrester came up with 5 predictions about what is going to happen to the industry by 2030. And I actually think some of these are going to surprise you. But as we discuss them, hopefully you'll see that it's really natural and it's not hard to believe that this is where the industry is going to go. And so the first of these is that accounting is going to usher in a new era of ethical AI leadership. Now, I really need to take a few minutes to talk about this. So, AI increasingly is going to be deployed into our finance teams to automate our accounting workflows. And so we obviously have to trust the AI that's doing this work. But also as CPAs, as chartered accountants, you have a much higher bar than the rest of the world. Your standard of ethics has to be impeccable. And so it's really natural to expect that finance leaders and accountants are going to be leaders in the way they deploy and the way they use artificial intelligence across their accounting workflows. But I've got a bolder prediction here. We've relied on the accounting industry for centuries, literally, to create confidence in markets. We've got a roughly $250 billion public audit market globally, and that's just with the big four, right? There's many, tens of billions of dollars more beyond the big four in public accounting in the audit industry. All of that work exists to create confidence in our markets, right? It's what enables me as an investor to make a decision about where to invest, believing, that I can trust the numbers. What's happening is we're expanding our view of the results of businesses. It's less true in the US, but as you move into Europe and the UK and parts of South America even, accountants are now being expected to report on carbon emissions. We're all familiar with integrated reporting, where the results of a business is beyond financials and goes into supply chain resilience, but it also goes into environmental and social governance commitments. And so I think it's entirely predictable that the accounting industry is going to be the industry that audits the use of AI within business for its ethical use. Because that's what we as investors are going to make decisions against. So that's the first prediction there. So we've got a question, I believe. This looks like a question that's really, really, really hard. So I'm not going to give you a lot of time to answer this one. I need to move it so I can see, though. There we go. Okay, prediction number 2, that there's going to be a total overhaul of risk management. If you look at the way we deploy controls and assurance processes within organizations today, they largely reflect a world of manual processes, where humans are doing the accounting work and where humans are doing the finance activities. And the reality is, especially with digital transformation, these workflows are becoming more and more automated. But even beyond that, we can deploy technology in ways that provides levels of continuous assurance. So one of the first capabilities we developed at Sage using AI was outlier detection, exception management, right? We created technology that could continuously monitor what's happening in a business to flag transactions that may have been coded incorrectly or may have not followed appropriate GAAP accounting or might indicate cases of fraud. But I think we can totally expect that by 2030, the way we look at assurance is going to be different. And AI as a technology that allows us to provide continuous assurance is going to be a huge piece of this. Okay, prediction number 3 is accountants will welcome new opportunities to build expertise. One of the things that I have to talk about a lot, especially with the advent of generative AI, is answering the question, will generative AI take jobs away from the industry, or will it actually enable the industry to grow? And my very firm view is that generative AI and AI will enable the industry to grow. And in fact, in the survey, we actually learned that 43% of the survey respondents believed that they would actually hire more. They would increase their hiring because AI would give them the ability to deliver more value, and they needed people to do that. So we're big believers at Sage, and Forrester concurs, that generative AI is going to lead to growth in the industry, not a contraction in the industry, which is really welcome news, because we know we've got a shortage of talent. My personal view, and it's because I'm a techie, right? I think accounting as a career is going to become more attractive. Number 4, real-time data will fuel proactive decision-making. I think the real insight here actually is the technology that we need to deploy to enable decision-making on real-time data is the same technology that's going to continuously look at what's happening in a business and find insights, right? Find insights, whether they're risks that need to be handled or opportunities that can be presented to leadership to make decisions against. But fundamentally, if we can create a scenario where technology is capturing all data and accounting for that data in real time, we can deploy technology to finding insights in that data. And that's the real outcome here. And then last, and I promise this is not from me, this is from Forrester, but Forrester predicts that by 2030, 75% of businesses will have gotten rid of the monthly close. I didn't get a chance to put in questions here, but I'm really, really curious, how much of you believe this? Like, do you believe that actually there will come a point in your career before you retire, maybe by 2030, that you no longer have a monthly close? And whether you believe it or not, that's my job, right? My job as the chief technology for a large accounting technology company is to deliver that future. And so what's really interesting is I've been selling that future for years and years and years. But what our surveys with customers are telling us now is there's no longer sort of a hope that AI is going to deliver this future. There's actually an expectation. Most of you, if not all of you, have had your experience with ChatGPT or with Gemini or Claude or these new generative AI powered conversational AI, where now you can wrap your arms around AI, you can see and feel the power, and it's driving a real change in expectations from the industry. And so, I'm not just selling a vision now. Our customers are expecting me to deliver on that vision. So how are we going to do that? And this has been a consistent approach for 7 years since I first started talking about what we want to do with AI. And it's very, very simple. And it goes back to these cycles. It goes back to a desire to want to get rid of the monthly close. Don't shoot me. Get rid of the annual audit. We're going to replace it with something much more valuable than the annual audit, right? The audit industry will only grow. Get rid of quarterly tax filing. Get rid of the summer inventory counts. We want to get rid of all of those cycles and transform the work of accountants to continuous, strategic, forward-looking work. And the way we're going to do that is in 3 areas of investment. So the first is continuous accounting. The objective of continuous accounting is to capture and account for all business activity in real time. The second big area of investment is continuous assurance. And so now that we have that data in real time, we need to actually believe that it's reliable and accurate for decision making. And so we've always believed that we need to make an equivalent investment in continuous assurance to create that confidence to go along with continuous accounting, which is creating that world of real-time data. And of course, these 2 things will free up a lot of time, at least the 25% of time that we talked about, but it also creates that foundation of real-time reliable data, which sets us up for our third big area of investment, which is continuous insights, right? This is using technology to look into that real-time data in a very exhaustive way to uncover those opportunities and those risks. The way I like to describe this is the state of the art today. If you use products like Sage Intacct, one of the things you're presented with when you log in is normally a beautiful dashboard, right? And this is a dashboard that reflects your work. It reflects the measures that you care about. And you're going there to look at your tasks, but you're also going there to find insights, right? How are your KPIs tracking? The problem with these dashboards is you have to decide what to measure. You have to decide how do you want to visualize those measures in a way that calls out the insights. And you actually have to remember to log into the system, to go to the dashboard, to find those insights. Well, now imagine that technology is continuously looking at everything that's happening in the business. It understands business patterns. And when those patterns change, it's able to reach out to a decision maker in real time, right? That's the future that we're looking towards. And the 2 big bets, getting to the title of today's presentation, the 2 things that are going to make that happen are AI and digital networks. And of course, we're bringing the world what we call the Sage Network. I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about AI, and I suspect most of you have at least, some foundational understanding of AI. With Sage Network, what I want you to think about is electronic invoicing. I want you to think about electronic payments. Think about being able to connect to your banks and to tax authorities in a digital way, connect to your customers and your vendors in a digital way, right? Digital networks are all about connecting businesses across their business ecosystem to digitally automate the workflows between businesses. And these two things together are what we're going to need to bring about this future that I've been painting. So what I'm going to do for the next big chunk of time we have here is break down our vision of continuous accounting assurance and insights into some examples of how we bring AI and how we bring networks to create that future. So first on continuous accounting. Go ahead if I can take questions now.
Yeah, just one. It was, what about working with the government as your client? Will AI work with the government?
So, so one thing that's super clear is that the government is taking some leadership in defining guidance, and policy, right? I think that policy is going to lead to regulation. But the U.S. government has already created their policy on the use of AI by government contractors, and I think that's going to be a bit of a pattern that we'll see deployed across the rest of the industry. I think the government's going to expect it. What's really interesting right now is there's a bit of I don't want to say arms war or arms race because I don't really like that term, but countries around the world are competing for AI leadership because of the belief that AI is going to be the defining characteristic of the markets that win in the future. And so the government is going to be a champion for the use of AI. And they're demonstrating that by being early in defining policy and what they expect from their contractors. I'm not an expert on the topic, but that's kind of my view from what I've seen. Okay, so breaking down. Oh, go ahead.
There was one from earlier too. Our biggest pain point is timesheets. Is there a way to magically capture employee hours real time and record the projects based on activity? Asking for a friend.
Was that from a Sage employee? That seems like a plant. We have a product called Sage Intelligent Time that uses AI to automatically fill in timesheets. And the way it does it is that it's integrated to your calendar. It's integrated into your office productivity tools. It's integrated across a lot of the tools that you use, and it automatically creates a timesheet where it associates your time to clients and projects. So yes, the answer is yes. We've had that product in market for a couple of years now. Okay, all right. So we break down continuous. Oh, sorry. Was there one more question?
Nope, I said thank you. That's a great answer.
Okay, cool. So we break down continuous accounting into three more areas of investment: capture, account, and allocate. It capturing the data. And then the way to think about account and allocate is financial reporting versus management reporting, right? So account is all about your GAAP reporting for your external stakeholders. Allocate is all about allocating your results in a way that enables management reporting. So that's the way we break that down. And a really good example of how we're investing in this is accounts payable automation, right? And our objective is to use both AI and digital networks to automate every step of the workflow, from receiving an invoice, processing it, paying it, and then ultimately reconciling payments against invoices. And so one of the big areas of investment for us has been what we call intelligent invoice upload and processing. So this is essentially using AI to read and categorize data from vendor invoices. So we enable our customers to email those invoices to a mailbox, and you can just give that email address to your vendors. You can use our file upload capability, drag an invoice file from your file system onto our product. And we give our partners and developers an API if they want to use that as a way to get them in. One of the things that we're super proud of is, fundamentally we're accountants. Half of our product managers at Sage Intacct are CPAs. My background, I told you I worked for Arthur Andersen. My undergraduate degree is in accounting. We know that you can't just use one expense account for an invoice. We've actually got to work on a multi-line basis, and it's also got to be multi-entity. And of course, because we're a global current organization, it needs to be multi-currency as well. And PO matching is a huge part of the assurance process. So we're building all these capabilities. A lot of it's driven by AI. Some of it's driven by digital networks. But I want to give you some insights into how we actually build AI to do this. And when we first started this endeavor to automate the processing of vendor invoices, I challenged my team, why are we not just buying something off the shelf? Doesn't AWS or Microsoft Azure or Google, have a AI service that we can use ourselves? And the answer is they do. AWS has something called, Azure has something called, what's it called? Form Recognizer. AWS has a text extract, right? These things exist. But the reality is they're not accurate enough for the requirements of accountants. They're roughly 77% accurate for what we need to read off of an invoice. But there are some values that are actually really hard to find for off-the-shelf OCR. So it's hard to find the total, for example, because the total often isn't labeled. It's often just the bottom of a column. And it can be easily confused with your balance, right? And these products don't understand accounting. And so they're not able to take that information that they've read off the invoice, understand the meaning, and then apply that to how to account for that transaction. And so what we had to do is go out and build our own AI to read these invoices. And in fact, we had to build 24 different machine learning models to do this. We have a couple of models that do nothing but recognize the vendor on the invoice. We've got models that are designed to understand the structure of the line items. We have 3 or 4 models, maybe more, for finding the total on the invoice and other hard to find values. We have models we've had to develop to understand the tax systems and the currencies. And what's really interesting is that we've had to define 7 models that actually are trained for each customer independently on their own data. So 7 of those 23 models are designed as a one-off for every single customer. So what that means is we've got tens of thousands of machine learning models that we've deployed, that we're retraining, every single day. And the result of that is we're able to get to a really high degree of accuracy across a lot of these invoices. One of the things that makes that possible is one of the patents that we've received, we call digital fingerprinting. So digital fingerprinting enables us, once we've seen an invoice multiple times from multiple customers, to create something like a fingerprint. It's a digital fingerprint in this case, that enables us, when we recognize these invoices in the future, to create very finely tuned AI models that achieve very high degrees of accuracy. And so across all of our customers that are using this capability, we've mapped about 60 million vendor relationships. About 40,000 of the vendors commonly used now, we've seen enough of that we've been able to optimize these models, and we get really, really high degrees of accuracy. So moving on to continuous assurance. So we break continuous assurance, I'm sure you can guess, down into 3 areas. I'll give you a few seconds to think, what are those 3 areas before I pop them up? Lots of rooms to break this down, but what ultimately I came up with was detect, reconcile, and review, where AI and other technology for detect seeks to, on a continuous basis, find exceptions, outliers, anomalies that are happening within the business that require a human review. Reconcile is focused on one of the most important assurance processes, the reconciliation of ledgers, not only between businesses like you and your banks, but within subledgers and general ledgers. right? So technology that automates reconciliation. And then, of course, review. When the human is required to review and make a decision based on the discovery of an anomaly, an outlier, an exception, right? Empower that human to make a confident decision about how to manage that exception. And so I want to go back to the example of accounts payable again. So, and we'll talk about vendor onboarding, probably one of your most favorite processes within your organization. Hopefully you've got somebody that you've assigned this to so you don't have to do it yourself. But it stinks. Nobody likes to do this. You've got to, reach out to a new vendor. You've got to get them to fill out a form, to respond with their tax information. Typically requires lots of follow-up. You've got to then enter that information into the accounting system. And if there's mistakes there, this is where gaps in a process can lead to fraud, right? So this is actually a really, really important process, and it's not a great process. So I want to talk about here the value of digital networks as a way to improve this process and to create more confidence, more assurance in that process. And so one of the things that we make available to our customers in the Sage Network is a product called Sage Connect. And with Sage Connect, you can go and add vendors to your accounting product. And we'll go out and we'll automate that process of emailing the vendor, getting their tax information, following up with them. But once we get that vendor information and we've filled it into the network, the next time somebody goes to work with that vendor and it's already in the network, we just look them up, right? We know that we know their information. We're keeping it current. And rather than sending out that form, you just click add as a new vendor, and we will continuously bring in the information and keep it current, in the ways to work in a compliant way with that vendor. The more exciting thing, though, is if we can get that vendor to connect to the network, we can actually continuously reconcile your ledger with their ledger, right? So their accounts payable balance to you represents your accounts receivable balance to them. So when these transactions happen over the network and we get these ledgers connected, we create an entirely new level of assurance in this process. But I do also want to go back to AI. I talked about this digital fingerprinting technology and how many vendors we're able to look at. Now imagine the security and the assurance that comes with those digital fingerprints. If you get that invoice from a commonly used vendor, maybe it's Office Depot or something, and it claims to be from Office Depot, but it doesn't actually match our fingerprint, right? This is a flag for us to call in a human to review this, because there's a chance this is a fraudulent vendor. This is a vendor in the middle attack, right? So it applies in both directions. So we have this very ambitious objective.
Aaron, we do have a couple of quick questions. Maybe I can interject here. One is, how do you balance data privacy against the accuracy gained from including all clients' data in your LLM? Do customers opt in with their data to gain the value from the models?
Yeah, so that's a really, really good question. I'm glad that was asked. So the first thing I want to say here is we have two types of models, and I am going to get into this in a minute, but there's two types of models. There's what we call global models that increase in accuracy with more customers using them, and more data from more customers that we can use to train those models. So two things to understand there. Well, three things. The first is that these are opt-in. So, you'll know transparently what's happening, and you've got a choice whether or not to use those capabilities. The second is that we follow the same standards of care with this data that we do with all of your accounting data, meaning, we still have our SOC, our SOC 2 compliance. We've got our PCI, we've got our HIPAA, we've got GDPR in Europe, right? We still have the same levels of care that we have to take with this data. But the third thing is that that data never goes outside of Sage, right? So it's, we're not using third-party models. Our data is never used to train third-party models. But also in our models, you can't, what's the word I'm looking for? you can't decompose the model back to the data. That's not the way the neural networks work that we've created here. But I think the most important thing is it's opt-in, and we have the same level of care and commitment to the compliance standards like SOC 2.
Okay, we got another one here, which is, how can AI help with identifying and reclassifying invoices coded to the wrong GL account?
So I'm not talking about it much in this seminar, but the first AI capability that we deployed into Sage Intacct is called General Ledger Outlier Detection. Now, that invoice is going to flow into the general ledger, and the way Intacct works, you can have each invoice flow as its own journal entry. So this technology essentially looks for errors in coding. We also have technology in accounts payable automation that looks for duplicates. So that wasn't what you're asking, right? But we've got technology that does that as well. But yeah, fundamentally, we're looking at every transaction that runs through the business with this AI to flag potential coding mistakes, or duplicates, as I said, or amounts that might have been miskeyed. So the three things we look at are coding, timing, and quantity or value. Those are the three dimensions that we look at to look for anomalies.
Gotcha. And then there's some other questions on here. They're very Sage product specific. So probably for those that ask them, we'll probably save those to the end, or we'll answer some of those offline, since they're very granular about the product itself.
Okay, cool. So I want to give you now a very short TED Talk, if you will, about how AI is developed, because I think we've all now had that hands-on experience with AI, and we can sort of see it in action. For a lot of what I want to talk about next, I want to give you some insight into how we build AI. And the first piece of this is really understanding what the ML is in AI ML. We often throw these things out together. They're often used sort of interchangeably. But I think that the important thing to understand is that ML, which stands for machine learning, is the process of creating AI, right? That is the science and the process, the engineering of building artificial intelligence. So the first thing to understand is that with machine learning, we're building essentially digital brains, right? So, a neural network, I'm going to talk more about this later in the presentation, but a neural network essentially represents in digital form the way brains are designed. Except in our prior to generative AI, these machine learning models were designed to do one task, and to do that one task very well and very efficiently. So that's the first thing to understand. The second thing to understand is the role of a data scientist, right? So data scientists, they then go out and design these models. They determine what are the best algorithms, what are the best approaches to training, what are the data requirements, how do we actually gather that data and work with that data in such a way that the data can be used productively. But the work of the data scientists fundamentally is designing that brain and designing the requirements for how the brain is going to be trained, which is where our AI and machine learning engineers come in, right? These engineers now go in and they build systems for training, deploying, and operating those machine learning models. So think about these engineers as essentially building factories, if you will, right? They're building a factory that takes its input as data. In that factory, it's doing this training, and it's deploying or shipping a model, and it's actually operating the model. And what's really important about these systems that AI engineers are building is their integration into the products that humans use, and connecting human feedback back into this loop, right? So that when a human corrects a bad prediction or inference from AI, or a human fills in a gap of information that AI wasn't able to obtain, that's then fed back into the system that trains the AI so that it's more accurate the next time. So what we've built at Sage is something we call the Sage AI Factory, right? So this is a self-contained, secure environment for continuously training and operating machine learning models. It's designed really from the ground up for the trust requirements of accounting. But one of the things that was really, really important to us was to take a lot of those requirements away from the engineers, to do it in a very scaled way so that we can enable our engineers to move fast, right? To enable them to innovate. And then getting back to our conversation about global models versus local models, we can deploy these factories to the Sage network, where they can be trained across thousands of customers who are all using the same workflow. But they can also be deployed to individual customers for those jobs that need to be trained on customer-specific data, and only their data, and works only for their process. So just kind of going through each step here. So the first step in building AI is the training phase. And with the Sage AI Factory, obviously as more data becomes available, the models are trained. And what we have to do with all this automation is implement things like automated quality checks, right? So for example, one of our quality checks looks for what's called in the industry model drift. That's just a fancy way of saying that the model predictions no longer match real world reality, which can happen as training data changes. So that's an example of some of the technology that we have to put into the factory during the training process. If you move on to the deploy process, what happens here is the factory has to make a decision, when has the model improved in its predictions enough, right? Or has it, have the predictions changed materially enough to deploy a new version into, the production environment? And what's really, really critical here is ensuring that we followed all of our processes for building AI safely and securely. This is where we've got technology that does the auditing, that enables us to track our ISO certifications, for example. The next step is the ongoing operation. So I mentioned that we have tens of thousands of machine learning models that these factories collectively have deployed for our customers, for the Sage network in general. And these factories have to be able to efficiently scale up and down. And they've got to also pay attention to what's happening in that production environment. This is an area where we've made a lot of investments. And in fact, it's an area where we do a lot of research and development into detecting and preventing AI hallucinations. We're going to talk more about AI hallucinations a little bit later in our session, right? But this is where we have to ensure that in the ongoing use of the AI, that it's being used scalably and efficiently, but also safely and effectively. And then last is these ways of incorporating human feedback into the cycle so the AI gets smarter next time. So just to give you an example, this is a screen of a vendor bill. We call them bills in Intact. It's a vendor invoice. On the right, you can see the invoice that was scanned by AI. And what I want to point out is that information such as the bill date, the due date, the total, who the vendor is, the pay to, return to information. This is data that is read the same from the invoice, irrespective of who the company is, right? And so it really benefits from the ability to deploy a factory to thousands and thousands of customers, right? So that it can learn from the collective. And when it's able to learn from the collective, we get to really, really high degrees of accuracy. But actually then, if you move down the screen to the actual coding of the invoice, so if you look at the accounts, the departments, the locations, other dimensions potentially that you might be using, you don't get any benefit by learning from other companies. This is a case where we have to build AI that learns specifically from you. It understands your chart of accounts. It understands your dimensions. It learns how you allocate expenses across various parts of your business, right? And that ability that we've created to build AI models on a company-by-company basis enables us to learn very, very quickly from each customer, leading to really impressive accuracy gains after only a month of usage. Okay, so I'm going to move on to talking about generative AI. Now would be a good time to put up a question or take some questions if we want.
Sure, do have a couple of them on here. One issue we have with automated vendor invoice processing is when we have a single vendor working on different projects that require unique coding when processing the invoice for payment. How is AI developing to recognize and differentiate these kind of single vendor invoices?
Yes, I mean, so this is an area of where we're investing a lot. This is probably the hardest part of automating invoice processing is that categorization. So what I can tell you is that we're getting pretty good at it. You know, there's work to go still. But what I would also say is when you're using purchasing, the AI that does PO matching is a really, really good way of ensuring the coding. Because typically the coding is defined by what's in the purchase order. So two parts to the answer. The first is we're working on it. We're getting pretty good at it, but it's a continuous investment. The second is if you implement purchasing as a workflow behind accounts payable, the PO matching takes care of the coding in a more accurate way.
Gotcha.
Great question.
Another question is, how do you think the elimination of a close and more reliance on AI will change and shape finance roles and departments? Good question.
That's a great question. If you'll stick with me, I've got some content about that. But I guess what I want to say, really boldly and confidently is we believe the industry is going to grow. We believe that the industry will continue to focus on higher and higher value activities. We know that CFOs, through our research and our surveys, we know that CFOs want to be, have more involvement in the future planning and direction of business and the strategy. I had this conversation with actually the CEO of a very large accounting firm in Canada, probably the largest local accounting firm in Canada, yesterday. And we were having this very conversation. And we both sort of agreed that irrespective of how far the technology goes, a foundational sort of understanding of accounting that can only come through training, that can only come through education, will always be required, right? It's the hands-on work is going to be more and more automated, but actually understanding accounting, understanding the language of business, understanding the world of compliance will always be required. So I sort of answered the question, but I am going to talk about it here in a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. So I actually I had my son help me to create some images for my slides, and you'll see a few of these images going forward now. This is AI that generated this picture of the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room, of course, is generative AI and, what's its impact going to be on the industry? What are the opportunities that we can leverage as a result of generative AI? I do want to start simply by explaining where generative AI fits in the world of artificial intelligence. And so if you look to the right, we've got this onion. So, you've got this very broad category called artificial intelligence. The way that we build AI, but it's not the only way to build AI, but the way we build AI is through machine learning. Deep learning is where we get into those models that resemble, digital brains. And the very largest of those models, and there's been some breakthroughs in technology in the last 10 years enabling these, are the generative models. Generative models can create images, they can create videos now, they can create music. They can also respond to and generate text. And one of the things that I want you to remember from the session today is that ability to generate is very powerful. But for our purposes in accounting, the real power comes from those models' ability to understand the input, right? To understand the question, to understand the text that's being fed in. And we'll come back to some of that. Okay, so I want to throw up something that I like to use quite a lot in the past. to sort of explain why we shouldn't be super worried that AI is going to, or to explain why AI's got a long ways to go. So this is a screen where Pokemon is prompting you to go outside and get some exercise. At the exact same time that the National Weather Service is hitting you with an emergency alert because there's a tornado in the area. Kind of a funny way of showing that technology is not integrated with each other, right? It doesn't have context. It's not plugged into the world. And even if it were plugged into the world, this AI from Pokemon, probably doesn't understand what a tornado warning is and why that should be a reason to not go outside, right? And so this is kind of the state of the world until about 2 years ago, when large language models became really, really useful. And so, like many of you, I had my experience, my magical experience with generative AI a few years ago. And mine happened on an afternoon. I was playing with ChatGPT. Again, this is about 2 years ago. And I really wanted to dig in to see what ChatGPT was capable of. And so I asked ChatGPT, what are some things that we can do to entertain each other? And I was expecting ChatGPT to say, hey, why don't I tell you some jokes? But actually, ChatGPT suggested that we tell each other jokes. And so I told ChatGPT one of my favorite jokes. It's really simple. A skeleton walks into a bar and says, I'll have a beer and a mop. And that's the joke. Some of you are laughing, some of you don't get it yet, and it's totally fine. This joke is meant to actually create that response where you don't get it right away. You're going to get it as soon as I throw up this photo, also AI generated photo. But ChatGPT responded, immediately with an understanding of why this was funny, right? ChatGPT understood that skeletons, they're only bones. They don't have organs or tissues. If they drank a beer, it would flow through the bones and make a mess on the floor, hence the need for a mop, right? They even used, they understood that mops are sort of, the tool in a bar for cleaning up, right? This kind of blew my mind. I went through a period of personal reflection here for a few weeks where I couldn't sleep at night, wondering, am I still qualified to be the CTO of this multi-billion-dollar company? Surely we need to bring somebody else in who is really, really deep into this. Now, the good news is I'd already been leading our AI. I just wasn't up to speed on large language models. But the thing, I guess, and I'm going to come back to my personal anxieties here in a minute. but the thing to take away from this, and we can have debates, ad nauseum on this, are on whether these are true or whether it's imitation. It doesn't matter to me. Whether it's imitated or not, we can now build solutions with AI with an expectation that AI can reason. We can build solutions with AI with an expectation that AI understands the world. And so if I were to ask AI a question like, what's the total outstanding balance by my top 10 customers? Right? It's got enough understanding of the world to know that that's an accounting question, to know that it would get the answer from the accounts receivable ledger. And believe it or not, it's already trained on major accounting products, right? To know how to do those on different products. And so this has really been the breakthrough in this vision of continuous accounting assurance and insights that's going to enable us to accelerate that vision. So I want to give you some background, some education on generative AI, but also why it's happening so quickly and what the impact really is. And so I want to go all the way back to the early 1900s. It was really more like the 1950s and 60s. There were two schools of data science, two schools of AI development. One school of AI development was a school that we refer to as the symbolic AI school. And this school of researchers and scientists believe that the only realistic way to create artificial intelligence is to create a system of logic and rules that simulates all of human behavior, right? So, it's capturing all of the rules that govern the way the world works, the way humans work. And this was, by far the biggest and more popular school of AI developers. The other school of AI developers were called the connectionists, and they believed that the only real way to create AI was to actually understand the human brain, understand how the human brain learns and works, and to create a technology that emulates the human brain structure and the human brain operation. And networks fundamentally are the structure of the brain. And the way I want you to think about these two things, I've been really trying to impress upon audiences just how big of a moment generative AI has been, how transformative it's going to be to the world. And the way I want you to think about it is the difference between inventing and the difference between discovery, right? There was an invention of the light bulb. There was the discovery of electricity that led to that invention. And my view is because we fundamentally discovered the way human brains work, that the availability now of large language models and other forms of generative AI are more akin to discovery in their impact on the world than they are to invention. New inventions have led to new markets, but discoveries lead to new industries. Inventions are powerful in the sense that they lead to immediate commercial application. But if you look at the impact of discovery, they lead to long-term economic and market transformation. Discoveries become a catalyst for developing infrastructure, right? We had to build infrastructure so that people could put light bulbs in their house. Discovery becomes an accelerant for further innovation. And I really do believe that generative AI falls in that discovery camp as a way of thinking about its impact on society, on the world, and on the accounting industry. And so, the question is, well, hey, if they were talking about this stuff back in the 1950s, why did this come so suddenly, right? I love this quote. I think this was Hemingway. Yep. Well, actually, the quote's on the screen there. How did you go bankrupt? 2 ways: slowly, then suddenly. I don't know. It doesn't perfectly fit, but the idea here is that we've been developing this capability for decades, but it's only been recently that we've been able to unlock its full potential. And the reason for that is a few things. So the first is simply the availability of computing power. We simply did not have the power to simulate a human brain at scale. We have that power now. Number two, we didn't have access to the quantum of data that we would need to train that brain with the full capabilities of a human brain, with that world context. Number three, and this is very much how business models can drive disruption. Consumption pricing meant that it could now become affordable to innovate. Without consumption pricing, this ability that you pay for computing power as you go, the very well financed could afford to develop AI capabilities. And then lastly, this is very much a product of the scientific community, and the scientific community believes in open source technology, right? And so there's this other dimension that these capabilities, whether it's the machine learning models or the data sets, are actually in the public domain, and they're available for anybody who wants to do the development. I'm not sure why this is the image that I wanted my son to create for this. I can't remember what the prompt is, but this is meant to be a sloth in a rocket. This is a Rocket Man sloth. Yes, that's what it is. That's actually, now I remember, I asked ChatGPT what would be a good image to go along with the slowly then suddenly, and it suggested a sloth in a rocket suit. And so we had a different AI then create an image of a sloth in a rocket suit. Pretty clever. Let me give you some data to back this up. So if you go back to 2020, and you wanted to train a large language model that was equivalent in capability to GPT-3, it would cost about $4.6 million. If you fast forward to 2022, you can see that drop is down to $450,000. And actually, that it was ahead of ARC's forecast. So if you're familiar with ARC, this is a technology fund. It's a hedge fund that is super high risk, totally focused on future innovation. It's Kathy Wood's hedge fund. I look at their annual predictions every single year. It's a big input into my view of the future. They're normally too aggressive. In this case, they were too conservative in their view. There's two things that are leading to this. You all know Moore's law, right? Moore's law essentially says that there's a doubling of the density of microprocessors every 2 years, leading to a doubling of computing power. We're still getting a doubling of computing power actually now it's come down to every 18 months. And the reason for that is two additional laws that have really risen to prominence as a way of understanding the continuing progression of computing power. And the first of those is related to computing efficiency. So Kumi's law says that the energy usage for computing tasks is cut in half every 18 months. This is a really, really significant law because it can give us hope, right? For those of us who are really worried about the impact to the environment, the carbon emissions associated with AI training and operation. Every 18 months, roughly, we double the efficiency, right? We cut the cost in half. There's another law, Wright's law, which essentially says that once something has reached sort of market acceptance and market scale, our ability to really optimize production leads to an additional decreases in efficiency through the doubling of production productivity, right? So we've got two laws in addition to Moore's law that are driving this progress, that are driving not just improvements in the performance of the large language models, but are also driving a reduction in the cost. And so the cost as of 2023 to train GPT-3 was down to 115,000. It's probably down to single-digit thousands now, but I guess something as a caveat there is models are getting more and more powerful and they're getting bigger, right? So we're taking advantage of this efficiency to develop more capable models, but this is a very promising trend. So the other thing to keep in mind is that, as I said, the development of AI is really is a scientific community that believes in publishing, it believes in open sourcing. The last time that I looked, and this was earlier this year, Hugging Face, which is where data scientists and AI engineers go to discover if there's an AI model they can use to develop something, now tracking more than 500,000 models, and that had doubled, more than doubled in the last year. And it had reached 500,000 from only 10,000 4 years ago in 2020. So, this is a result of those factors that I spoke about: the increasing availability of computing power, consumption pricing, open source, right? All these things are leading to an acceleration in the development and the accessibility of AI. And it's not just the number of models, but it's sort of the variety and the scope of the models. We have, last I looked, there were 82 models that could just read tabular data. There were 193 models built for working with invoices, 16 on receipts and 7 on bank statements. There were 38 models that were doing for forecasting, whether it's demand, weather, rent, commodity prices. There were also at the time about 110,000 publicly available data sets for doing your training, including 100 billion words from US newspaper archives and 160,000 lines of 8th to 15th century historical texts. You can find these databases for everything. Of course, there's publicly available data sets for finance and financial text. There's 70,000 lines of finance-related questions with answer parts. There are publicly available data sets for learning from emails, movie reviews, Pokemon cards, cats, right? If you can think it, there's probably a machine learning model that's already been developed that's in the public domain. And if you want to build it, there's probably a publicly available data set to help you to build it. It's incredibly, incredibly accessible. And so it would be very, very natural to take this view? All right, so we got the question. I'll let you guys handle the question, and then I'll let you laugh a little bit at these two contrasting headlines. Gizmodo has always been one of my favorite publications for its cheeky headlines. In this particular article, which takes kind of a dim look on the future as a result of AI, it does call out that stonemasons, jackhammer operators, should be totally fine in the brave new world, which I thought was pretty hilarious. But I'll take you through some things. I don't have all the content today, but what I can tell you with confidence is the research tells us that large language models make everyone more productive. But in industries that require training and experience, that productivity actually accrues more to the relatively less experienced and less educated. In other words, as you bring more employees onto your accounting team, those employees with less training, with less education, with less experience, they will benefit relatively more from large language models and generative AI and their productivity than will those of us who've been doing this for a while, which fundamentally means we're all going to be more productive. We're going to be able to do more. And I believe we're going to attract more people to the industry because we're doing more valuable things. So let me tell you a story this is about 2 years ago. We were in London for a leadership meeting. And so I report to the CEO at Sage, and there's about 10 of us, including like our chief commercial officer, our CFO. In this meeting, our chief corporate controller was actually in the meeting. And so this is like all of the leaders of Sage, including myself. And I brought the AI team in to educate the senior leadership team about generative AI and to start talking about some of the opportunities. And at some point in that demonstration, we showed ChatGPT answering a very complex accounting question. And I've got to describe our corporate controller. This is an incredibly impressive woman. She's in her early 30s, and she's the global corporate controller for a company that's valued at $15 billion with 11,000 employees. This woman is incredibly confident, and she's incredibly smart. And after seeing that demonstration, she yells out, "I'm going to be replaced by AI." Our chief commercial officer, who also is actually pretty young, he's a Dutch gentleman with a lot of logic and dry wit. He says, something that I'm going to repeat 1,000 times. He says, "No, you're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by somebody who uses AI better than you." Right. And that's sort of the call to action is, we're all going to become more productive, more effective when we learn to use AI, in our jobs. So I want to show you kind of a funny video around this. I thought this was pretty hilarious. My son found this for me. The demonstration of using AI to be more productive. I love that video. If you couldn't see what was happening, on the right side of the screen there, he's got a mobile phone with a camera turned towards him. He's built an AI model that detects when he's not paying attention to his homework, right? And then it blinds him with a light and a high-pitched screen. It's funny, right? It demonstrates somebody winning by using AI better than others. Maybe not the way we intended to use AI to be more effective. But I think what it also demonstrates is that this is a student that built this, right? He built this by going out to Hugging Face, by probably getting a model that already existed. He probably used ChatGPT like the way I use ChatGPT to help me write the code, right? And he was able to build this, pretty quickly. So it's funny, but I hope you can see that this is the real opportunity is harnessing the AI to be more effective and more productive. So what are we going to do with AI? We've got two big objectives with generative AI, right? What are we going to do with all this new technology? So we break it down into two broad categories. The first we call engaging and empowering everyone to access accounting. What that fundamentally means is within a medium-sized organization, it means empowering the rest of the company outside the accounting team to be successful with accounting. It means, somebody like me who doesn't log into the ERP very often can interact with Sage Copilot to get answers about my budget and how I'm trending towards the budget. It means that I don't have to log into an ERP to approve a purchase order or to get information or to submit a purchase request, right? This technology enables fundamentally different ways of interacting with technology that will empower a new class of users to be successful. What it also means is that a small business owner who's got to print out financials to go get a loan, but doesn't have any accounting training, right? We can use AI to help that individual to understand what are the insights in their income statement and their balance sheet that the bank is going to to find, right? So that's the first one. It's this technology creates fundamentally new ways of interacting with technology that will empower a new class of people to participate within accounting workflows. And then the second, and this is the one that's the most powerful to me, is we're now going to be able to advance our use of AI from simple task automation to full workflow automation. And obviously, it's super important here to say with human control. So I want to go back to the beginning here. I threw up this Latin text for you. I asked you to trust me that this Latin was talking about the monthly close. I don't actually expect you to trust me. That's too much to ask. You don't know me. We've never met. So what I want to do is show you my conversation with ChatGPT about this Latin text. So I put the Latin text into ChatGPT, and I asked ChatGPT to translate it. And here's how that conversation went. And I wish I could see your faces. So if we were in a big conference center right now and you were all sitting out there and we'd have the lights dimmed, this is where I would unveil the magic. So the answer to all of this is Sage Copilot. And so for the rest of my time with you, I want to take you through our vision for how we can harness the power of large language models to bring a new level of automation focused on continuous accounting, assurance, and insights. And so I want you to imagine that you're an accounts payable clerk, you've logged into Sage Intacct, and upon logging into Sage Intacct, you're notified by Sage Copilot that some work was done since you last logged in. And so Sarah's going to click on Open Sage Copilot. So that's going to start the dialogue. Copilot's calling out that it processed 15 bills totaling nearly $60,000. And of course, Sarah can look at the list of bills processed if she wants, and she can dive into any of those individually. If she wants, she's just going to go ahead and approve these. And you'll see why in a minute. Copilot's further going to let her know that Copilot reached out to 4 employees to chase them for approvals on some bills that need to be approved before they can be processed. And then Copilot, I believe, also went out and created some payment requests. And she's got the ability to approve to look at these payment requests and approve them to actually be paid. And I believe she's going to do that. Now, here's why she felt confident that she could just say approve. So here's a scenario where Copilot's telling her that a bill arrived from a vendor for $1,200, but that's substantially higher than the historical range between $250 and $750, right? So this is that outlier detection that's saying, hey, the value here is off. Right. So in this conversation, she's now asking Copilot to reach out to Bob in marketing. So Bob is the relationship owner for this vendor. To find out if this is accurate and we can actually pay this. Sage Copilot, the way we're designing it is it will work across our products, right? So it'll work with our financials product, it'll work with our HR product, and yes, our Sage Intelligent Time product. I'll show you a demo of that. With our planning product, right? So Sage Copilot was able to go out to Sage HR and discover that Bob is actually on PTO, but it'll reach out to Bob tomorrow. Okay, another one, and this is really, really important as well. This is where Copilot, apologizing that it's not confident that it actually correctly coded an invoice. And so we're able to click the review button. We're able to go to that screen. Copilot's highlighted the values where it's not confident that it either coded or captured the amount correctly. And so she's going to go in and correct those amounts, right? So she changed the equipment. She's going to fill in the amount. There we go. There's the correct amount. It looks like it was smudged on the invoice. Go ahead and save that. And of course, now that you know how the Sage AI Factory works, that correction will go back into the training for the next time this model is trained and deployed. It'll be more accurate. Okay, so let's go to a different kind of example. So in this example, we've got our employees in Microsoft Teams, and Copilot is reaching out to Kate on behalf of the accounting team to, this is part of the monthly close process, to figure out how much of a purchase order needs to be accrued, right? So Copilot's asking, hey, how much needs to be invoiced by month end? So Kate can click on Copilot to enter this conversation. Rather than having to go into the purchasing system, Copilot is bringing relevant information to Kate. But of course, Kate can click the link to go look at the purchase order if she wants. But in this case, Copilot's saying, hey, look, here's the history of the invoices that we've processed. Based on that and based on the total amount of the purchase order, I suggest you go ahead and just approve the rest of the accrue the rest of the purchase order. Okay, so she's going to go with that, and of course, Copilot will relay that back to the accounting team, and they'll recognize the rest. Okay, so getting back to, do we have AI for filling in timesheets? So here, Sage Copilot is reaching out to Tom, who works on billable hours. The timesheet's filled out, and Copilot is chasing time to post the timesheet so accounting can bill. So here's Tom going into Sage Intelligent Time. You can see the timesheet is filled out, but what you can also see is there's a gap Friday afternoon. And so Copilot, again, because it's got access to all the Sage products, it knows that Tom took paid time off on Friday afternoon. So just asking Tom to verify that, to make sure it looks good, but to then go ahead and please confirm that so that it can be submitted to accounting so that it can be billed. All right, so that's happening. Copilot's doing the work. Tom's going to approve it. And here we go. Oh, actually, I never noticed that before. I've done this demo like 10 times. You can see that Copilot actually created a new line for PTO on that Friday afternoon. That's pretty cool. Okay. All right, so the next example, and this one has to do with digital networks. And let me... Okay, so in this example, we're now on the accounts receivable side. And this company is able to electronically invoice many of their customers who also happen to be on the Sage network. And so Sage Copilot is saying, hey, an electronic invoice was issued to Joule Systems for a pretty significant amount, but they haven't actually accepted that invoice yet. So let's kind of follow that through. So we're going to go look at that. Now we're in the Sage Network app. We can see the status of all of the invoices that have been sent to Joule, and you can see in the status column, some have been applied, closed, accepted. But there is one outstanding e-invoice that will have a big impact that hasn't been accepted yet. Would you like me to send a note out to that customer? And so here Copilot is generating a note. There's the note in question. It's gone ahead and sent the note. And my larger demo will show that they accepted it and paid it. Okay, so if you've been paying attention, you probably realized I haven't talked about continuous insights yet. So I'm now finally going to get to continuous insights. So we break continuous insights down into three areas: identify, forecast, and act, right? It's, discover risks and opportunities in real time, continuously forecast what's going to happen in the future, and then empower humans to make confident decisions. We call that making smarter, faster decisions. One of the areas that we're focused on with our AI development is cash flow predictions. And one of the key components to that is predicting when customers will pay, right? So we've got this AI now that is predicting when customers will pay their invoices. And if you hearken back to my story about, dashboards are great, but you've got to remember to go look at them. This is great, but somebody's got to go in and look at these predictions and look at the forecast and notice if it's going to get changed. So one of the patents that we were granted is technology that does that continuously. That's always looking what's happening in the business. It identifies when there's a change, and then it can notify somebody of that change. And so now I want you to imagine that Kate, the CFO, is in Microsoft Teams. And Sage Copilot has been continuously monitoring cash flow and has now been able to upgrade the cash flow forecast and predicts an additional capture of $200,000 by the end of the month. The reason why for that is they implemented accounts receivable automation, which has driven down DSO and time to pay. But also, they were too conservative in their modeling around subscription renewals. They've actually been coming in higher. So the result is $200,000 cash extra. And so we're taking now Kate into Sage Intelligent Time, where Sage Copilot can show Kate, here was the original cash flow forecast. Here's the revised cash flow forecast. And we can, have some back and forth about what to do with that money. Right. And so Kate's asking, what are some options? So, one of the first things that Sage Copilot comes back with is this understanding around the metrics of the business. And in their particular business, the way, they should be measuring marketing efficiency and marketing productivity is LTV to CAC, right? The long-term value of a customer versus the cost to acquire a customer. In their case, they're very efficient, right? They're right on where their numbers should be. They're actually a little ahead, implying that they should actually spend more money on marketing if they have it. And so that's what Sage Copilot is suggesting here. And Sage Copilot's going to go ahead and take Kate to a screen where they can model out what that impact is going to look like if that cash is applied to marketing. So hopefully you've got a sense now, of where we're going with continuous accounting assurance and insights, right? And how that all comes together with Sage Copilot. So I now want to talk about trust. And this will be the last major topic for us today. All of our research tells us that the biggest barrier to adopting AI is trust. And the reasons are pretty well understood. Some of these reasons are less, that they're not as talked about as much though. So one of these goes back to one of my favorite stories. During COVID, I reached out to some of our small business customers, especially those who had responded in surveys and gave us some critical feedback. So I reached out to a customer who had given us some critical feedback. This is a mom and pop paving stone company. They sold garden stones. The pop ran the retail operations. The mom ran the bookkeeping and the back of store operations. So I spoke to her. This is in the UK. They were using our Sage 50 product in the UK. And she was frustrated about bank reconciliation, that it was really taking her a lot of time. And I knew that we had AI-powered automated bank reconciliation in that product. And so I asked her if she was using it. And she said, no, I don't trust it. And the reason why, after really asking a lot of questions, the understanding of that was it wasn't anything to do with data privacy or data security. It was entirely about her confidence that AI was going to do the job competently. Because if she makes a mistake with her cash reconciliation, they might miss payroll, right? Or they might bounce a check, right? So many bad things can happen. She takes her responsibility for reconciling cash as critical to their business, and she just can't conceive of giving that over to technology. And so it's not just the data privacy, it's not just the data security, it's not just the ethics and the potential harms from bias. It's also, can I trust it to do my job? Because still fundamentally, I'm accountable for the result. But there is also the other stuff. So I want just having a little bit of fun with you. I wanted to show you some of the images that we came up with before the one that actually made its way into the slide deck. This is one of the samples we got on the elephant in the room prompt. If you look closely, you can see a case there where there's arms coming out of a chair, human arms. I mean, the chair's got arms, which that's okay, but they were human arms. You can see a two-headed human sitting in the back. I mean, there's lots of things that are actually pretty creepy about this image. I love the human hands coming out of the chair. This one actually at first glance looked pretty good. I'm like, hey, I want to use this for the joke about the skeleton in the bar. But if you look closely, the skeleton's got a tail coming out of its head. Actually, I should have used this on Halloween. AI is amazing. It's crazy what it can do. But we have to use it, in ways that are safe and competent. So one of the things that I'm very careful to do, as the technology leader for Sage, is to really drive a culture that's quite different from the culture of Silicon Valley. When I was building my career in Silicon Valley, Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, was famous for his motto, move fast and break things, right? That's how he encouraged his product development team to take risks, right? To innovate. And a lot of us really embraced that in Silicon Valley. But in the world of artificial intelligence and in a world where our technology can have, more impact on our customers' lives and the communities in which they live, we got to get rid of this, right? We can no longer work by the motto, move fast and break things. We've got to work by the motto, embrace humility and accept responsibility. We can't be that cocky company that thinks that breaking things is all part of the innovation process. We still want to move fast, right? We still want to experiment, but we've got to do it in a way that embraces humility and accepts responsibility. So we've got a lot of content about this. You can go out to our website and you can see me in a bunch of videos talking about trust. But what I want to do is, give you a couple of takeaways here. So first of all, what are we doing to maintain your trust? So the first is, you've already seen this. We make equivalent investments for innovation into assurance and automation. In other words, we know that in your world, confidence and trust is just as important as productivity and efficiency. I've shown you the Sage AI Factory, the primary purpose of which is to hard code our processes for safety into the ways we develop, deploy, operate, and train our AI models. I haven't talked about this that much, but where we do our hardcore research and development is almost entirely focused on how do we detect and prevent AI hallucinations. Our patent applications over the last year, probably half of them have been around preventing, detecting, keeping our systems safe from AI hallucinations. Right. And then last, it comes down to our commitment to our customers and in particular to things like transparent AI development practices. So, we spent a lot of time talking to a lot of companies about, what can we do in the way we develop AI to maintain your trust and confidence? And what we came up with is a series of 5 commitments. Right. So the first commitment is essentially, this assurance that a human is in control every step of the way. Right. And this is going to be evident in all of the experiences in the way that you use our AI. I'll tell you a story here. We've gotten really good at the AI for processing invoices. We've gotten so good that the team was proposing to me that we create AI that automatically pays the invoice. And I had to kill that because I just cannot accept that our users will feel so confident, that they'll feel so in control, that they will want to allow their AI to pay invoices without their interference. We will build something probably in the future where you can set some rules to say, hey, here's a level of threshold for confidence, right? Here's the rules you have to follow. But the human will always be in control. Number 2 is you can have confidence in our AI results. In other words, we're very, very focused on accuracy and reliability in the world of accounting. So if you go back to that story I told about how we built AI for invoice processing, we didn't use the off-the-shelf stuff because it wasn't accurate enough. We poured millions and millions of dollars into research on how to read an invoice accurately. And that's, by the way, data scientists think that's really sexy. They love working with accounting data because it's so well structured. It's reliable. I mean, they actually love this stuff. Okay, number 3, we'll give you explanations. We go out of our way to explain results to you. I'll give you another story here. In the early days of Sage Copilot, when I was playing around with it, I asked Sage Copilot a question, and this was in a pre-release version. I said, "What's my cash balance?" And Sage Copilot came back and said 0, and that was it. And I knew the balance wasn't 0, so I went back to the team like, "What's going on, guys? We've got to provide explainable results." In the next iteration, when I asked it, it said your cash balance is 0. However, you may have been asking what's the cash balance in your bank accounts, not what's in your petty cash, which is what I answered. Here's a table of your cash balance across your bank accounts. And here's a way to go run the report to get that. So explanations. Number 2 is we're fully committed to responsible AI. This is where I spend my time with the Sage Foundation. It's where I spend my time giving back. It's working with organizations that are developing the next generation of leaders. We need more women in AI development, and we need a broader diversity of racial and ethnic backgrounds developing AI, like full stop. And we're very, very focused on this. And then lastly, one of the things that we hold up as just part of our brand, part of who we are, is if you're in the US and you need to talk to support, there's going to be a human in the US you can talk to. If you're in the UK, like similarly, we overspend on support in terms of making humans available, and we're investing in what we call Sage membership, the Sage community, where we're making expert content available to you to help you to understand how AI works and how to use it safely. And you can go to our website, and we've got all these principles laid out there. As I said, there's a bunch of videos that explain this. We're kind of getting tight on time, so I'm going to quickly go through. Teens in AI, one of my favorite organizations that I spend a lot of time with, totally focused on teenage girls in parts of the world that don't have strong digital access and weak education systems, all around getting them excited about a career in AI. Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, which is where I live. It's where our North America headquarters is. This is a historically Black university focused on raising the next generation of Black men. So Martin Luther King is probably their most famous graduate. And so I teach courses there on entrepreneurism and on generative AI. And we've got a lot of our AI team involved with Morehouse College. I mean, really what this comes down to, again, is that progression, right? Away from move fast and break things, right? To, how are you really delivering value to customers? And this is the progression that I like to talk about to the world of AI now. We've gone from, the value we deliver is you can keep records digitally, right, to now automating record keeping, to now, helping businesses digitize their workflows. But fundamentally, we've got to be in a point where we can tell our customers we're helping you to achieve your purpose. So I want to show you a video.
Sage Intacct and the AI power platforms are really bringing sexy back to accounting.
Operation Hope is the largest nonprofit in the U.S. that focuses on financial literacy and financial empowerment. There is a huge problem with financial literacy in the U.S.
Really being able to educate people on what those things are, how to benefit yourself with them, how to create a budget, how to stick to a budget, how to be smarter with your money.
Most Americans aren't educated in the world of finance. Just those simple things. What is a budget? How to follow a budget?
Understanding the way credit works, understanding what a credit score is, why it's important, how it affects every aspect of your life.
We raise an individual, the whole boat rises. We really think it helps the whole U.S. economy.
We were fortunate enough to be an early adopter for the AI platforms with Sage Intacct, the first one being AP automation.
We jumped on it as soon as we could. It's a very smooth transition. It was so simple.
Now I can just email a bill directly into Sage Intacct It reads directly what's on the bill.
AI, it's not there to replace you, it's there to help you.
The whole process is just, it's quicker, it's easier, especially being on 2 different coasts of the US. The entire process is just sped up. I don't have to wait for a West Coast person to wake up. We also use the geo outlier detector. The biggest benefit of that one is it just catches mistakes. It makes everybody look better. It makes data entry easier. It makes review easier. It's like having an assistant, a little personal assistant helping you make journal entries because it caught all those things in the beginning. It helps get time back.
We're able to drill down to a deeper level to be able to provide more reliable and accurate information to those who need it.
Helps our team do everything that they've been doing, just faster and smarter.
Okay, I hope that was inspiring. I brought Michael up on stage with me earlier this year when I was giving a presentation at a user conference. He's 6'9", I'm 5'8". He wrapped me up in a big bear hug. It was kind of embarrassing, but I love his story. And when I was interviewing him on stage, what we really talked about was what it meant to him personally to get that 25% back. He's a single dad with sole custody of 2 kids. Right. And imagine, what life was like when he had to, stay in the office crazy hours to get the months closed, or, disappear for a week when you're getting the year closed. Right. It meant for him, he was able to spend time with his kids and be the kind of father that he wanted to be. And the way we're going to get there, as a reminder, and I promise this is the last slide, is through, continuous investments and innovating around continuous accounting, capturing and accounting for all business activity in real time, continuous assurance, matching that real-time data with confidence and reliability and compliance, and then continuous insights, assuring that we're discovering the opportunities and the risks that are in that data and enabling our customers to make smarter, faster decisions. And that's it. Thank you very much for spending a couple hours with me.
Hey, we do have a couple of questions. I think we have a couple of minutes here. If I can ask a couple of the questions that are left here. One is, how to prepare for people growing up with and relying on AI to do their thinking for them. For example, I see students today just hitting ChatGPT and that's their answer, versus those who understand the logic behind AI.
I don't have a good answer for you on that. I think I will tell you that I rely on ChatGPT every day, all day. I have ChatGPT in a second monitor next to me, and as I'm doing my own research, I'm asking questions about things that I don't understand that are part of a broader understanding of the research. And ChatGPT is helping me to go down this learning path. And so, I guess if you can apply my experience to it, and some people are going to, use it as a crutch, and some people are going to use it as a tutor like I do. I do believe that despite that risk of people allowing it to do their thinking for them, it can also be that incredibly powerful tutor that helps you to learn faster and, understand better than you would have otherwise. And the great thing about it is it's not judgy. When I felt like I needed to get back into hands-on development a couple of years ago with large language models, and I could have gone to, one of our fresh data scientists or AI engineers to help me learn how to code in Python. But instead I had ChatGPT teach me how to code in Python. And so, I think it just comes down to, it's a huge opportunity. Yes, there's risks, but the people who really want to move forward will use it in the way I described.
Awesome. Also, how do you anticipate these technologies working together in an ecosystem? As great as your products are, they won't meet every business's needs. Will there be data sharing standards to allow modules from different ERP tools to interact?
So yeah, great question. The short answer is, if you go to our products today, like Intact or Sage 50, you'll see pretty robust marketplaces of partner solutions. And in most cases, those partner solutions are integrated. So, they automate the synchronization of data, or the automation of the workflows. And we very much envision Sage Copilot working the same way, where, from within Sage Copilot, we'll be able to plug in partner products that enable that Copilot to extend beyond Sage products and to work across other products. So that's the direction that we're going. It'll take us some time to get there, but we very much view it the same way we view today's platforms.
Awesome. And I see Joe up on there. So let's, I guess we'll turn it back over to Joe. Thank you, Aaron. This has been great.
Hey, Gary, thank you very much. And Aaron, absolutely great program today. So well received. Lots of interaction from our guests. A lot of hearts and applause signs coming up throughout the meeting. So thank you very much. Just excellent topic.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And we really appreciate everyone attending and spending their morning with us today. I'd also like to quickly thank our exceptional marketing and support team at Cherry Bekaert, including Amanda Keeper, Maddie Robbins, Leah Gearhart, Ziba Farha, Kate Dharma, and Eunice Arias for preparing and running today's event. Not only today's event, but throughout this entire 6 weeks, it's just been exceptional. And we really appreciate the support that we've gotten. With that, I want to pass it over to Joe Greaves to close us out for the 2024 Financial Executive Forum. And I know many of you on this program today know who Joe Greaves is. I want to extend Joe a special thank you for many reasons, but today for all of your work in building and making the Financial Executive Forum from the Controller Forum to where it is today. And Joe, we are truly grateful for your unending support, and we'll all miss you. Joe?
Thanks, Grant. Hello, everybody. What a great presentation from the Sage team today. The future looks amazing. This is why I love this program. As Grant mentioned, this is my final sign-off for our FEF program. It's been a great run. After 40 years of active participation in our local DMV accounting and finance community, I'm retiring next month to spend more time with my wife, Patty. I want to thank Grant Palmer for doing such a great job as our primary host this year. All of our programs, great sponsors who put together 6 exceptional programs for us again. I also want to personally thank all of you, all of our great friends and clients who have supported our Cordia and Cherry Bekaert teams in our programs over the last 12 years. Finally, I hope you'll return to this FEF series again next fall. God willing, I will look forward to seeing you there as a fellow participant. With that said, I'm going to sign off now for the final time. I hope to see you again sometime soon. We're all done, and there's the final polling question. You take care. Goodbye.